Hello everyone, welcome to Satsang. We continue to have some internet connection problems, so if it falls down, then we will re-establish it again. Let's make some silence first. Silence. Nothing else matters. No yesterday, no today, no tomorrow. Silence. Emptiness. Void. Thoughts feed on attention, on importance given, subside, and create apparent universes. From a little grain of sand, remove your attention. Stay with silence. For the concrete mind, silence is emptiness. Nothing. Stay with that nothing. Okay, just reminding everyone that we use WhatsApp as a means of communication. So this means you can send your questions directly to me and I will answer it. It makes the conversation more fluid, and it is private also, and that is a key factor: privacy. Because without it, it is difficult to have pure questions, more sincere, more personal, in a personal matter. So I'll answer a question now. My question is, whatever I seek or make self-inquiry, it takes an energy, an effort. To be clear and understand well, what spiritual masters want to teach is no effort at all. Please let me know if I should make moves, search with my attention or not. Because if I drop everything, even the tension is melt in being. Even if it moves from shape to shape, it doesn't matter. My mind wants to catch on ideas about enlightenment, but if I let go, every single thought remains unbearable nothing. I dreamed about permanent silence because of my noisy mind, but this kind of nothing is difficult. Please tell me something about it. Well, there's a difference for sure in what a disciple or seeker of truth understands and what a master says. That is unquestionable. So if this is the main teaching, no effort at all, so there must be a confusion here. Because what you're seeing, it is like this. Whenever I seek or make self-inquiry, it takes an energy, an effort. It is so until it becomes effortless. That means until self-realization. Because if it is effortless, but still there's no self-realization, well, you just have some conditioning. And maybe that's a good thing. It can be a good thing. Or maybe it's just a superficial work, and that depends on the level of seeker that you are, your motivations, your deeper motivations. These days it is very common to see people trying to create a new character, a spiritual character, which is an effortless character. But that's just for spiritual environments and self-deception. It is the same as the previous character, just suitable for these new ideas. To be clear, understand well, what spiritual masters want to teach is no effort at all. Please let me know. It's not about no effort at all. It's about trying to give an image, a vision, of an understanding about the natural state. But yes, there is a lot of confusion about this because the master speaks one thing, the others understand something else, and well, confusion continues. Please let me know if I should make moves, search with my attention or not. Because if I drop everything, even the attention is melting to being. Have you seen this? Even if it moves from shape to shape, it doesn't matter. My mind wants to catch ideas about enlightenment, but I let go. But if I let go, every single thought remains unbearable, an unbearable nothing. Yes, this vision that what remains is an unbearable nothing, this shows that you are really trying, or else you wouldn't reach this unbearable nothing. But as you said, your mind is still too noisy. So trying to remain at the source, I don't know what teaching you're following, but stillness or remaining at the source, it will give work. It takes effort for the one who has a noisy mind. What is a noisy mind? It's a mind full of afflictions, full of convictions of right and wrong, or what's real, what's not real, full of anxieties, dependencies, weaknesses, fragilities. Still a lot of dependencies on what appears to be real. And this dream about the silent mind, it's not all about illusion, but there's a big part which is about illusion, and this needs to be cut down. So, hearing the words of the Master, this points the way. And then trying to reach that state will reveal to you what the obstacles are, what the beliefs in the middle are. And this you need to address, because when you reach a point that you can remain in silence, in stillness, despite what is emerging, then that is enough. Because it's like, it's not unbearable. It is a place where explosions take place and they are hold tight in that space. Things collapse into that already present silence. But if it is unbearable, then there is work to be done. Seeing what is arising, what is pulling your attention. This will help you to get a clear vision of the structures of your own illusion. And with that, you can cut them. So the mind is always trying to get things, to catch ideas about this and that, so that it can reshape, adapt, persist. So having the vision of what the natural state is, it is very important, but also working from where you really stand. And a noisy mind is not really ready for. It's not an obstacle. Nothing is an obstacle to will, to sincerity. But it is more difficult. And if there are other spiritual disciplines, like meditation, for example, it brings a lot more intensity and it brings a steady growth. Maybe growth is not the best word. A better establishment in that silence. It's the same. So this idea of a silent mind, it really means an empty mind, a no mind, void. It's not a tamed mind that has learned some tricks. So When you're staying at the source, when the attention stays at the source, eventually, whatever is arising, whatever will arise, that attention to remain at the source, it will have to ignore whatever else is manifesting, whatever level of noise, of thoughts, emotions, whatever, sensations. It will have to ignore, or else it will not be able to remain there. And by ignoring them, it becomes visible. Which ones are more important? Where your fears lie. Because those you cannot resist the pull, they are more strong, and you can work them some other way, directly to them. And when the question is raised, usually the master would ask, but who is asking that question? Who is having that difficulty when you're expressing a difficulty? And that supposedly, it is supposed with that question that you understand and have a vision that it is illusion in you that is having the difficulty, that is fighting, so that you can identify more with silence and less with that voice. But that is understood in a very different way. Because mind is still too noisy, there is still identification with the mind, and very difficult to observe it. Because when you say who is asking that question and you observe, immediately that identification is cut. You're observing it, you're not it. And this is a spiritual work that needs a lot more silence, more strength. So when the mind is too agitated, there is too much weakness, too much fragility in the mind, too much dependence, all around dependence. And this makes this spiritual work impossible. Or you have to fake it, take it to a level where you're just reshaping personality, and this is 90% of what it's being done, usually. Or it is a very wild journey, intense. There's no one that has unbearable means it is difficult to stay longer in this space. I have a silent mind sometimes. Well, what does this mean, I have a silent mind sometimes? Because if it is just, it has to have some silence or else it would be crazy. But I understand. It must have some interruptions. So this unbearable, to stay in that silence, that is the illusion character with all its complexities, exposed into that big silence. It seems like it's going to explode or something like that, because it is too much. But these are only impressions that you are receiving from this illusion. You see, silencing the mind. It is very important. Emptying the mind. Taking its role out of the picture. Its role as the seeker. Mind is not a seeker. It's just an instrument. So judgments, evaluations, all of this you need to silence. Silent meditation or meditation at the source, it is very important. And this will accelerate a lot. Because it is like trying to achieve the impossible. And maybe it wasn't a good example. Moving directly to that level, it is practically impossible. Not impossible, but practically impossible. And there's no need, because there's other things that you can do to make it real and make it possible. And that which is there in that moment where it seems unbearable, that is the structures of your illusion. And that is what needs to dissolve. That is the veil of ignorance, that whole body, complex body. If you can remain more and more in that silence, good. Meditation will also help you. A lot. And then as you see that which is very important coming in strong fears, well, you can cut it. You don't need to just be silent. Because eventually that will happen. So you can address it directly. And as you cut these fears, these investments in your illusion, the level of silence will increase. The level of noise and agitation will decrease. And then it will come in, in abrupt timings, in an abrupt way. And then the line flattens again. Then it comes abruptly. Before it was like, then it changes. More periods of silence, and then abruptly intense agitation is coming from the deeper layers. And at this level of work, in these moments, it will take effort again, but then it's more or less effortless till you get more and more established. Until revelation or self-realization. Okay, in the past, when I was a child, I had clarity about what I'm not. There was no need to know who I am. And I want this independence now, but this knowledge from past is an obstacle. I had a journey that I'm observer I had a journey, that I'm observer of thoughts and forms. This was that clarity. Anything comes, has to go. It was obvious. So all this in the past, there was no need to know who I am. And I had this independence now, and I want this independence now, but this obstacle from past, this knowledge from past is an obstacle. So more or less, this, what was natural previously, is being interpreted by the character, and it is seeing obstacles because there is a goal in mind, and goals in mind, they are a problem. They are the problem. So you were an observer of thoughts and forms. But who is the observer? Is it the witness of duality? But that doesn't mean, if you're looking at duality from the observer point, it doesn't mean that you know who you are. And knowing who you are, again, it's not something intellectual. You were detached, you were seeing things, you were not being touched by them. That is good. That is, there's a lot of freedom in that. But it's not freedom yet. So something must be pulling you now. Or else you would just be trying to return to that state. So what is pulling you now? This vision that you had in the past, it's not an obstacle actually. It is a memory of a more free state. And that means that memory is very important, because despite what you are seeing now, you have seen it differently previously. And having this vision of being different from what is being observed, and this notion, what comes, goes, it's like a traffic policeman. He is observing the traffic. Maybe not because he's trying to guide the traffic. Maybe today is not a good day for examples. But if you're observing, it is more difficult for you to mistake yourself with that. And that memory is not just a memory. That state of consciousness is still there, and you can access it. To exit the present state of vision that brings these confusions, this dependency, this weakness, this fragility, you can use that as a way to get out from this level of vision. So it's not an obstacle, but it's not the end yet. It's not the final destiny. But when you're trying to make that the final destiny, then it becomes a problem. So when you're a child, there is less conditioning. The world has not been able to get a tight grip on your perception, on your self-perception, perception of the world. And it builds up with time, it builds up and builds up. Other fears from others get into you. Big traumas happens. Life is that way. It is inbuilt to make you believe. But that vision That is a very good tool. So imagine that you have some kind of attachment, dependency on someone or in something. Now you know, it is here, I have to cut it, to leave it, drop it. Fear arises with the idea of dropping it because there is dependency, fear that something will happen. Then you can hold on to that memory, to that state of perception. That will not remove the fear, but it will help. Because the only way that you can remove the fear is to outgrow the fear. And that means to get exposed time enough to that fear without fighting it, without trying to change things, and it will lose its power over you. That's the only way to overcome fear. Oh. A noisy mind, no fear at all, they don't go together. They don't go together. So we would have to continue with these questions. So how is your life? Do you have any investments in worldly life? Do you depend on it? Or are you completely independent now? So we would have to question, but that feeling of unbearable, that is very important. And you see, there is no noisy mind without fear. But if you look superficially, it may seem that way if you have what you called your securities, or what you used to call your securities, in place. You're not touching them, just doing your spiritual work with whatever else. This way you will not see it. But noisy mind and no fear mind, they do not go together. And this feeling of unbearable in the presence of silence also is revealing intense fears. So that must, if you think there's no fear, there must be the securities of your worldly life, which is connected to survival, prosperity, and all of this. This is in place, untouched, unquestioned. So, or you haven't looked enough, or these are in place and you're not seeing them. Noisy mind and a mind with no fears, they don't go together. And that is fact. Yes, I'm sure you don't care about death at all. Death usually, you see, if you want to elaborate more, it will be better, because this makes it difficult. But the path has a lot to do with self-investigation. So if you're trying, and I'm not saying that you do, that you are, but if you're trying to justify, wait. More messages came here. Wait. Yes, I'm sure. Yes. Okay, I will read. I'm fully ready to let illusions go. This, you will see, it's not just about being ready, it's to let them go when things are arising intensely in that intimate space of perception. And the more silent you are, like you said, you're now. Now, I had silence mind, no comments for your satsang, no thoughts at all, just listening. I don't care about death at all. I don't care. Death is usually very easy on an intellectual level. But this fear of death is more instinct bound than mentally bound. For some it is mental, but they have a lot of other afflictions. And even for those who have these afflictions, death is usually apparently not the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario, usually for a weak mind, is life, a life of uncertainties. So in their mind, a life of uncertainties, of difficulties, is actually more difficult than death. This is, well, suicides are high, for example. And I have heard of many seekers say, when they have a strong attachment they need to cut, oh, I prefer to die than to cut this thing. So death is not the most. So as you remain in this silent mind, it's not something like, it's like fixing a puzzle. Illusions will arise, will have to arise, and dissolve by the lack of your importance, attention. It is a process until revelation, because self-realization may be a little bit misleading. It is more of a revelation. The lifting of the veils, so to speak. So as silence is there, you have to stay with silence. And eventually, if you're staying with silence, these difficulties, fears, first it will seem unbearable, but stay with that. These are the superficial triggers to make you go back to a normal setting. You have to stay, continue to stay. Then you will see that things become a little more concrete. Mind has a lot of layers. And silence makes everything come to the surface, to dissolve, if no importance is given to it. If importance is given to it, it will strengthen more those illusions. But like I say, if things are in the right track, if there is a seeker of truth, then guidance is there. Do you have guidance? Is guidance there? And guidance is perceived as something different. You will know clearly the voice of guidance. It may come in different ways, as a master or as inner guidance. It is the same, but it depends on a lot of factors. But it is always distinct from what appeared to be you. Because if there's no guidance, there's no road to continue. Because you're not going towards the divine. Because if it's without the divine quest, it is just a road to silence, to emptiness. And what is that? It's like saying that depression is a high state of consciousness. Because in depression state, you have no will to do anything. Well, if nothing is real, so what is the point to invest in whatever? So is that an exalted state? Well, it can lead to exalted states if it is seen properly. But the one who is feeling depressed cannot see these things because his condition is of extreme dependency, of fragility. So he will not be able to see it. So is it a road to the divine? Is it for self-realization, for God realization, for divine realization? Or is it towards emptiness, towards the natural state, towards no effort at all? That makes a lot of a difference. So if spiritual work is being undertaken, are you meditating? What are you doing? A lot of questions could be asked. But if the spiritual work is there, what marks the beginning is the presence of the fire, like I explained the previous satsang and others. It's like a flame that takes you, and guidance is there. One of these two has to be there. Or else, it's just a road to nothing. And that will be just nothing. Not all, but nothing. Not fullness, but emptiness. Without the divine quest, without the devotion. Is your heart filled with devotion? Is your mind, when it's empty, when there are no thoughts, is it empty of thoughts or full with divine presence? Well, I'm sure it doesn't. The heart doesn't ask questions. It is fullness in itself. The mind does, but okay. So, if you feel it is important to reflect on that, now or some other time, if you don't, well, don't. But there are always indications if things are going into the right direction. Is life present there? Are those indications in place? If they aren't, if there's an agitated mind, and there's this and that, well, and you have to look at the clear picture, not just what is now at the moment. Because when the heart takes over, when vibration rises, it overthrows illusion, it overthrows noise, agitation, whatever is there, and establish itself like a that occupies all the space, keeps it full. But then as this vibration falls down, the rest rises again. Exactly that which has brought these questions into play previously. And the more you keep tuning and remaining at this level, the more it dissolves the rest. But the most important is, where is that road leading to? And all these questions, quick answers do not clarify. It needs a lot of observation and questioning what appears to come as the immediate answer to see. Well, I'm sure. My whole life is for truth, nothing else matters for me. I'm sure it is. But those things, usually, in a living process, they are tested. They are tested. And you can only be sure of it when you're tested and you succeed, because testing comes to help you to go through whatever obstacles are there. And if the test comes, it is possible to overcome it. But if it's not coming, something it's not in place. Put that in place, whatever it means, and the tests that will come to test that sentence. My life is for truth, and the rest, nothing else matters for me. So in some way, if agitated mind is there, and this is also here, good? Testing is all the time. Okay. But as you made these questions, the previous questions, it's like something is not in place yet. And it's better for you to make sure that these answers that are coming, they are not in a way protecting the image of the seeker, more than a way to go deeper in the vision you have of all these structures. Because self-deception is always, 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 for everyone, the biggest obstacle. Either it is going and it is in the right track, everything is in place, those things that I told you previously, guidance and that body of the process that resembles like a flame-like, either these things are in place and it is going, or some things are missing and it needs to go deeper. But that only you can evaluate. Okay, you're welcome. For you to have a vision, when there is, when the potential is there, intensely present. Maybe potential is not the best word. You have to forgive me because English is not my first language. But okay, let's put it this way. Those tests that will come to you, they are more or less like life and death tests in the level of intensity. It's like if I go through that, it's worse than dying. It is worse than that situation that you experience. It is unbearable. It is in the unbearable category. So these are the tests that I'm talking about. And if they are at this level all the time, it is a very good sign. But usually not many are able to take it because, well, it is at that category, unbearable one. And if faith is lacking, devotion is lacking, they cannot go through it. So, okay, if you have any other questions, I'm always, sometimes when internet allows, I'm here. And, well, so there are some people here writing in Hindi. Sorry, I don't understand Hindi. So if you want to put something here, put it in English, if you can. The life of a seeker of truth is an epic. Illusion in you, the mind wants an easy life, nice life, boring life, safe life. But the journey of the seeker of truth is an epic, where he faces the unbearable time and time again and time again. It's not about being in front of that which is or seems unbearable. That's not the greatest test. It is to persist after one and another and another and another and another and another and another, because it really gets tiring sometimes. Like Jesus on the desert. Yes, with scorpions and a lot of things. Have to put some more difficult things into that desert, because desert can be, well, still a very nice place, depending. But it is possible. It is possible for those who really believe, who have faith. Not just having faith, oh, I have faith, not that. Faith in those moments. It is what makes the difference. When you're facing the test in the unbearable category, persisting is what makes the difference. And being able to succeed or not is just about persisting or not. If you have the faith to persist, it's only what makes the difference. If you believe it is impossible, then it will be so for you. If you believe it is possible, you will struggle and struggle and struggle. But if you believe the divine hand is guiding and you surrender to it, then it will be real. It is, after all, a divine romance. Okay. So if there are no more questions, then we are done for today. Next satsang will be Wednesday. Wednesday? Wednesday. 9 o'clock in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. Until then, reflect, intensify your spiritual practices, make it real for you. Watch.